And that is why communication is important, because I have worked with people who have amazing technical skills and who also I knew in any situation they would save my butt.
Welcome to the Data Nerd Podcast. I'm your host, Nisar Ahmed. Join me as we explore the inner data nerd inside all of us. Dive into the world of data alongside special guests who not only share their wealth of experience and knowledge, but also unveil what truly makes them data nerds. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment wherever you listen. And for all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, head over to the datanerdpodcast.com. All right, we're back here with the Data Nerd Podcast Season 3. I am kicking it off with Eva Murray. Welcome, Eva, to the Data Nerd Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Hi, Nisa, and hi, everyone who's listening.
Yes, Eva. So, just a short introduction, right? On Eva. I'm excited to have Eva on the podcast. So Eva is a former Tableau Zen Master, international speaker, and co-founder of the global data project Makeover Monday. If you've heard of that, she's the one behind it. As she inspired thousands of people to sharpen their storytelling skills with data. After more than 13 years working in consulting, financial services, and software companies, she now focuses her energy as a career coach, helping data and technology professionals build meaningful careers, reignite their passion for work, and take control of their professional development. Passionate about blending technical expertise with soft skills, Eva empowers people worldwide to uncover their unique strengths, overcome challenges like imposter syndrome, and make a bigger impact in their careers. Does that just about sum it up, Eva? Did I miss anything?
It just about sums it up. And I have actually, over the last few days, done a bit of thinking around how would I put that into one sentence or into something that maybe uses words that aren't written down, but that I would actually say to
Mm-hmm.
you or somebody else. And
Yeah.
I think what comes closest is I just really, really love helping people get the best out of themselves, recognize how good they truly are at certain things, what their talents are, and help them be amazing at their jobs. And that's not to say they're not amazing at their jobs. It's just sometimes a little nudge can unlock so much. I'll be like, oh my God, I had no idea somebody would find this useful. I thought it was just what everyone does. Um, so there's like working with people who are really skilled, really passionate about something, and helping them really bring all of that out so that others can see it as well. I love that stuff.
No, and I think that's a great service because here's the thing. I think that a lot of people that people have so much potential and sometimes they don't even realize it
Yeah.
until somebody like you will tell them, like, listen, like you can do this and you're capable of doing so much more. Or maybe maybe it's the imposter syndrome, right? They feel like they're not qualified enough, but they actually are qualified to do it. Do you find that that's a common trait amongst people who maybe aren't optimizing their full potential?
Um, to some extent, yes. And I think what also happens is that we often think that we operate the same way that everyone else does. So if somebody is like super organized, gets their stuff done, powers through their to-do list and achieves their goals, they probably think that's how other people approach it as well. And then when you realize they don't, and maybe they struggle with all of that, you're like, oh, but why? Like, why doesn't somebody else do it the same way? I think that's where a lot of actually misunderstandings happen, but also where you could discover like some real superpowers. And when I say superpowers, that doesn't mean nobody else has them, but it means that in your unique combination of, skills, experiences, expertise, talents, and maybe this little thing that you've developed, whether that's like a really good system of doing something or just, yeah, a clever approach, like that could be actually something to really set yourself apart. And I do think that often people don't get that external input of somebody else looking at what they're doing and giving them another view. So they only see themselves. They're like, oh, but this is just what I do. Like, this is nothing special. Why would I be the one speaking about it? Why would I get on stage to talk about this thing? Whereas somebody else might be like, you have a really cool story to share, and I've never seen it done this way. Like, you should be on stage. And I think there's the disconnect that then maybe manifests as imposter syndrome, where people are like, oh, not me, like, I'm not ready. But people would actually cheer them on when they're on stage and be like, holy moly, this is, are we
Yeah,
allowed to swear on this podcast?
but go for it.
I was just gonna say, like, holy shit, this is really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, listen, I can relate to it somewhat to some extent because obviously now with my podcast I'm kind of putting myself out there, and it was outside of my comfort zone initially. Even like I teach classes, even getting into teaching was outside of my comfort zone, because I thought I didn't know enough.
Mm.
And maybe I don't. I'm not saying I know everything. I'm by far not the most educated person in my field, right? I'm not like there are people who are much more qualified than me, in Tableau, um, including Andy Kribel, right? He is, you know, uh, Andy Kribel is like I would consider him the original. He's the top of the list there, right? What we all thrive to be like, but my experience, just my story can offer some insights to other people that they may learn from, right? And that's why I bring people on like you, and that's why I start these podcasts is to share some of those insights and stories, right? And get people to talk and give people confidence. I think that's what it is, right? It's just about instilling confidence in people.
Yes, and we would miss out on so many cool stories if we all stopped telling them because we said, well, somebody else has already done it. What can I add? Um, I was at that point myself. 2015, I remember well, 2015, I went to my first Tableau conference, and then 2016, Makeover Monday started, Andy and Andy doing it together. And I remember thinking, I think maybe it was Andy, maybe it was someone else in the community encouraged me. They're like, oh, like maybe publish a blog, like, write this down in a blog. Or maybe it was just the thing to do at the time. And I thought, what can I write that would add anything? Like, what can I contribute that somebody else hasn't already said in more technical, more advanced, better ways? And then I thought, oh, what the heck? I'll just do it, even if it's just for myself to document my process. And what I've actually found is somebody will read it and they're like, oh, I like this way of talking about it. Maybe it's the way you explain it in your classes. Maybe it's the way somebody describes a use case. Maybe it's the way somebody structures their how-to guides step by step through, building these calculations or designing certain visualizations.
Mm.
Everyone has a unique perspective on something. And I think that is so valuable because if everyone thought like me at the time and then also didn't take action, we would have not a long list of ambassadors and visionaries and community members.
Mm.
It would just be the same people who started, 15, almost 20 years ago doing this stuff, still doing it, and everyone else following that original lead. And I think
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with keeping the original voices around. Of course, Andy, I mean, I'm biased, I'm a huge fan. But he is excellent at what he does. And he has also evolved over time, and he's helped so many people step in and say, "Oh, actually, I really like Tableau Prep. That's going to be my thing." Or somebody is just really, really into building amazing KPI dashboards. Like one person can't cover everything. So everyone can make a contribution. And it's not so much about, fame and fortune. It's more, what do you want to talk about? And there will be people who are interested in listening because there will always be more people reading and listening than people talking and writing.
Mm.
There will be a bigger audience than, who's on stage. So there's always a place for somebody else to come in and say, okay, I'm going to start now as well.
Yeah, 100%. And for those who don't, so we're talking about Andy Kribel. Do you want to provide some context in terms of your relationship to Andy and why we're bringing him up
Yeah,
in the conversation?
sure, and maybe why I'm biased. So
Yeah.
Andy and I, we live together. We do some work together. We co-hosted Makeover Monday for a number of years, um, and yeah, he runs a Tableau training program, which is excellent and really focuses on what gives him the chance to teach, which he's so passionate about and he loves doing. Um, so I think I'm probably one of the people in the world who knows Andy the best
Yeah.
because I've seen so many facets of it. I've, worked closely with him. We had that project together. We've written a book together. We're now parents together. So there's different elements to that. But also I think I'm still, because of my involvement in the community, because of the jobs I had, I can still judge with a certain distance, the things he does, but also put it in relation to what other people do. And I've seen over the years so many different people step in and contribute to the Tableau community in particular, become ambassadors, become visionaries, and broaden what it means to now be in the data fam. And the funny story about the data fam,
Yeah.
which I don't know if many people know this, but we heard this firsthand that it was a bit accidental, this term, the data fam. It was just meant to be um, a campaign, like a marketing thing
Yeah.
for
Uh-huh.
one of the conferences. I think it was 2017 or 2018. And it just took off a life of its own and it just stuck around. Like it was never meant to be this brand. It just happened because the community ran with it. Um, so yeah, so that's just a little random aside. But
20,
yeah,
2017 was, I think, Las Vegas, and
yes,
2018 was New
New
Orleans.
Orleans, I think it might have been 2017 because I do remember the person telling me, I'm pretty sure it was at a Las Vegas hotel. So yeah. Anyway,
No,
random
I mean,
story for
but
another
listen,
day.
that's a huge part of a Tableau, the community, right? And the community really brings things to life. And that's a great example of one thing, right? Data, now you see data from everywhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of like branded to the Tableau community.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And I don't, to be fair, while to us it means something, to the big world outside, it means nothing.
Yes.
And that's not a criticism. It's just the reality that within our bubble, like even the term Tableau ambassador, Tableau visionary, outside of people using Tableau or people using technologies that connect with Tableau, people will just be like, what? What? So
Yeah.
I think if you were just to describe it as like a brand ambassador for the software, like people might be like, oh, okay, okay, I get it. But it really, it is a bubble. It's a great bubble to be in. But it is also something where just it is still a niche. And I think sometimes we forget that because we live in it. So we're like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is just a thing. And then you talk to others about it, they're like, you do what?
You do, yeah, I know, I know. Sometimes so I became a Tableau ambassador last year, and to me it was because I've always heard about this. Like I've been part of the community, just not at that level, and now I'm part of this network, this ambassador group, and to me it means a lot. But to people outside of Tableau community, it may not have the same. I don't know, it might not resonate the same. But I think ambassadors kind of, you have ambassadors across many industries and organizations, right? So I think that, people kind of understand. But when you talk about like visionaries or even that, like you were a Zen master, which now has changed
Yes.
names and now it's
Yes.
called visionary, right? So even the naming of the namings have changed as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think, there will even be people who use Tableau who have no idea about all of this community stuff. It just happens, right? I think there are probably people at Tableau who don't know anything about the ambassadors and the visionaries. Um, and that's just it. Oh, but yes, that part of the community evolved, and I think it was also a sign of, the changes that Tableau went through as it became part of Salesforce. Um, but it was interesting to see it. So I was a Zen master for 4 years, and I actually decided to step down because I felt in my role at Snowflake, because I was so focused on Snowflake, still really connected to a lot of Tableau customers and partners, but I felt that I wasn't making the contributions that I would feel warrant being a Zen master or a visionary. I
Mm.
felt that it's not fair that I get to keep the title because purely because of the visibility, not so much because what I do actually really measures up against others. And I also felt that I had benefited a lot from what came with the title. And the funny thing is that I think it's probably really useful for people who are consultants, where it's really about the Tableau hands-on skills in desktop, in server, etc. Whereas for me, it was more around, kind of my personal brand and being able to talk to people and bringing together at the time my knowledge or my work at Exasol and my connection to the Tableau community and then Snowflake. But I felt I had enough out of it and I wanted somebody else to take the spot because I know there are limited spots. Now they might increase that size, but it will always be a limited number of people who can have that title. And I felt I had a good run. I The marginal gain from keeping that title didn't justify keeping it from somebody else.
Yeah.
So I stepped down from it because also I just in my job didn't have the capacity to be as contributing to the community anymore. Um, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
And it's great to see how it's evolved and how many other people now had the chance to, not because of anything I did, I don't want to claim that in any way, more just to say, the community has evolved. It looks different. It's spread more globally into many more countries. And yeah, it's almost impossible now to keep up with everything that's going on.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the purpose of that community, right? It's to
Yeah.
grow and spread the knowledge of Tableau. My experience, so last year was the first time I went to the conference as an ambassador. My experience was completely different this time than it had been historically. Historically, it's been about, I go to a conference, I want to go to these sessions, I want to learn. I network, yes, you meet people, but the networking as an ambassador, when now I'm intermingling with other ambassadors, was, much different for the better. Like
Mhm.
my experience at Tableau conference has always been great. Don't get me wrong, but it's just a little different as a when you're part of that community now.
It is, especially when it's visible in some way through swag or on your lanyard or something.
Yeah,
Um, 2015, when I went to the Tableau conference in the US, that was my only conference ever as an attendee where I was just like, just do whatever the heck you want. And I would go to sessions. I would, I had no idea what Iron Viz was. And then I stumbled into it. I'm like, what is this?
yeah,
Like, if you're unprepared, you're like, what? And I kind of just, did all the things. And after that, every year I was there as a vendor. So I was there working at a booth and I still had a great time, but it did mean kind of limited opportunities for socializing. But at the same time, it made it very easy for people to find me. If they wanted to talk, I could just say, meet me at the booth. And that made it quite easy rather than having to like find meeting spots and arrange things. Um, and I had the fortune that I could also attend conferences here in Europe where, I was based in Germany at the time. So I had conferences that I would attend in well, Germany and the UK, I think were the only locations really. Um, but that was nice because it gives you more than just one conference a year.
yeah. And it's grown so much in Europe, like the conferences or whatnot. It's called the Data Fam conference, right? In Europe.
Yes, and I
Um,
haven't I haven't been to anything since 2019, so the pandemic, and then I joined Snowflake, where
yeah,
I wasn't, it wasn't really the role for me to then go to the US because they had people in the US
right.
going. So I kind of miss going to TC, but we can't really justify flying the whole family over. And then, if you have a toddler with you, who really gets to attend the conference only one at a time? And yeah, so I'm staying put, but I'm watching from afar with a little bit of envy sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. I got to meet Andy last time. Yeah,
Oh,
he was
good.
presenting at the awards for
Yes.
the Vizies. Yes. Great. So we're talking a lot about, Tableau and some of the community and, from a technical standpoint, like, you're very good in using Tableau, right? But what I wanted to discuss with you, and this is kind of where you're kind of shifting towards, is how to help people in their careers. And this is not just Tableau people. This is just anybody, right? And how do you help them balance the soft skills with the technical skills and how that can
Mm-hmm.
help your career growth? Because oftentimes my feeling is that many people are very good technically, and sometimes they don't place as much importance on the soft skills or the communication skills. And especially now, I feel that with the advancement of AI is, I wouldn't say replacing our jobs, but it may be taking away some of maybe, I don't know, the mundane manual tasks and or making it easier for us to do accelerate what we do.
Yeah.
But what is it's not changing or what it's not taking over or replacing is the soft skills, communication skills, data storytelling, how to communicate. That's still a very human skill set, which I think will be even more important now than it was before with the advancement of AI. So I said a lot there. I let me pause there and get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I really like that question. And I think I have a very similar observation to what you just shared, that there's a lot of focus often on the technical skills and maybe not enough to balance out with the soft skills. And what I will say is, it's maybe also a human nature that technical skills, while they're not easy to build, they're easier to measure than soft skills, right? If you measure somebody's competence in Tableau, you can assess it. Competence in SQL, you can assess it. You can test it. You can get them to code in front of you. You can give them a challenge and they can solve it. How do you measure if somebody's a good communicator? Much more difficult, right? Maybe needs observation. You could do some assessment. Like there's a lot of different facets to it. And some of it might even just be, well, this is my analysis of you or my, what I take away from a conversation.
Mm.
So I think that's one part that if somebody says, I want to advance in my career and this next role looks like I need to add Python skills, okay, you can do a Python course. Pretty straightforward. Not easy, but pretty straightforward to actually do the steps and get a certificate. If you put in the work and you have maybe even a bunch of projects you can show. Um, I think the more advanced you are in your career, the more there are expectations around bringing soft skills. And what I see as a risk is that there isn't enough focus for whatever reason by leadership and management on helping people build those skills and even know to build those skills. And something that I was very fortunate to have is managers who not only talked very clearly about what their expectations were, and they said all the unspoken things out loud. They would say, okay, we're having this meeting with a customer, some very challenging dynamics. This is what I expect to happen. And then, so we would have a prep meeting and we would have a debrief afterwards so that I could understand, if I didn't already,
Mm.
what was happening in the room. And I don't see that happening a lot now. There might not be time because everyone is maxed out and just stuck in Zoom calls all day.
Mm.
But I think this is really, really important, especially post-COVID, with people who are maybe in more junior roles. If they haven't had a lot of those interactions in, let's say, an office setting, because most of us, let's be honest, we work in offices, right? Or in office-like environments. How are they supposed to know? Do parents teach you how to work in an office? Well, only if they've had that experience themselves.
Mm.
My dad is a doctor. My mom was a stay-home mom. They couldn't teach me anything about the office, and
Mm.
a lot of it, they're listening with fascination about some of the dynamics that go on. So where I come in is that we can uncover some of these topics and just be usually how it starts is that somebody says, I've got this really challenging stakeholder, or I have to do this presentation, and I'm really worried about them not agreeing to the points that I've found, or something like that. So somebody will present a problem, and we'll dive into it and look for solutions together. And that's not me saying this is how you need to do it. That's me more understanding with a set of questions what's really going on. Is the person able to figure it out themselves if I guide them a little bit? But of course, because I have a bunch of experience myself, and I've been in a lot of those situations myself, I do want to give them at least some examples of what it could look like, or examples of what worked for other clients, what worked for me. And so we do cover specific situations, and this could be, how do you prepare yourself for a stakeholder meeting? What are some of the questions they could think about ahead of time? And that's why I think it's super helpful that I have done myself. I've done jobs that are involving data analysis, data visualization, stakeholder management, but also worked with colleagues in roles that were very technical or sales or marketing. So I understand this data language. So if somebody comes to me and says, this is what I want to propose to the stakeholder, they don't have to explain the technical stuff to me. I usually understand enough of it for us to have a proper conversation about it. Um, and then there might also be things around like presentation skills. So you talked about presenting and communicating data, and I think there's a bit of an art to it. You're not just going to stick a chart on the slide and say, well, this is this filter and this is this filter. Like that's not going to be benefiting anyone. So what I love, for example, if somebody wants to go down that route, is looking at how do you give a better demo? Like, how do you really show people what your dashboard contains, how they navigate through it? How do you give them the example of the user experience that they're going to get? How do you get them to ask you questions? How can you understand how they're going to use it? And what does that tell you as an analyst that you should maybe improve? Because quite often we sit there, build a dashboard, think this is great, they're gonna love it, and they're like, oh, I can't use this because there's some disconnect in between.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so with that in mind, I don't ever teach anyone Tableau. I mean, if somebody wants to show me the dashboard and get some feedback, I'll happily do that. But apart from that, like I don't focus on that. Other people, Andy and others, are much better at that. What I focus, and I don't really even see it as teaching them soft skills. It's more to say these are some areas that it would be really helpful to address, to focus on, and that could be presentation skills. It could be things like managing up. So, how do you interact with your manager? How do you optimize the communication with your manager? Updates, being proactive, thinking what keeps them up at night, and how can I make sure they get a good night's sleep? But also executive presence. So, the more senior your stakeholders become, you don't change as a person, but how you show up, how you present, that will definitely have to evolve, right? We're not going to talk the same with the CFO as we do with our colleagues. Yeah, I'll pause there because I've said a lot, but yeah, that's generally how I approach it.
So as I'm hearing you talk about this, I feel like what you're focused on are the human interactions,
A lot.
whether it's presenting or interacting with others, right? And so as you were talking, my follow-up question was going to be like, if I'm good technically, why do I need to learn the soft skills? Like, can I not just stay in my lane and just do what I need to do? Do I have to get into that? But I think, and my feeling is because now what you're touching on, it's not just presenting, it's about interacting with others. And even if you're in a technical role, you're going to have interactions with people, right? Like you're not working by yourself. And how do you interact with them? How do you communicate with them? And that is important for you to not just do your job better, but also um, show what you're capable of doing, right?
Yes, and I'll put a word in there that may make some people cringe, but I think some of it also comes down to marketing. You can be the best developer in the world, but if nobody knows about it, what use is that, right? What use is it to you to keep all of that knowledge and skill to yourself? You need to at least tell people, I'm really good at this stuff, so you should hire me. Or, you should work with me. You should give me your projects. Um, I'm thinking a little bit like, if an athlete is world class, nobody will know unless they actually compete against other people. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not saying we have to always compete, but we have to become visible. And I know for some people that's horrifying and they're like, oh my God, I don't want to be on stage. I don't want to post selfies. And that's not what visibility is about.
Yeah.
I think it comes in many flavors. And if somebody says, I don't want to be visible, they should at least make their work visible. And that's really, it can happen in very small ways to say, hey, I created this code. It makes everything so much faster. I want to share it with the team. Can I have 2 minutes to talk about it in the team meeting, or can I post it? Can I post my solution on Slack or whatever? Like, I think there are different avenues depending on what people's styles are, but your work has to become visible. And that is why communication is important because I have worked with people who have amazing technical skills and who also I knew in any situation they would save my butt. Yeah, if I got stuck in a conversation with a client, they would step in. They
Yeah.
would step away from the technical and like maneuver the situation. You could stick them on stage. You can put them even bilingual. Like it's like okay, I can put this person in front of a French person. They can like speak French to them. Like some people are really well rounded. I've also seen people where the technical isn't there and then things come crumbling down really quickly. They might talk a good game, but the substance isn't there, and that's a shame. And I think in these technical roles, the technical skills are super important. But if you can't communicate what you've built, what the results are, why it matters to the organization, if you can't build relationships with your colleagues and with customers, then you're really limiting your options. I guess that's what it comes down to. And for some people, it might be totally fine to be in one organization for a really long time. I just think it might not be the most secure option because you never know if they want to keep you for all that time. So I think it's a bit of an assurance for your career long term to have options because you can move into different roles that are maybe adjacent to what you currently do if you have a range of soft skills to complement the technical ones.
So does your personality have have an effect on this? Because I feel that many, I'm generalizing here, but I think generally speaking, people who are good doing work technically sometimes are a little more introverted than extroverted, and sometimes that plays into their hesitation in putting themselves out there, right? To your point, right? Sometimes they're unsure or they get anxiety over it. I had uh, I'm an introvert, right? I still am, even though I'm doing this podcast, I still am an introvert, but I'm not afraid anymore to speak or put myself out there, including in work, right? At work, if I'm in a meeting, um, before I used to just not talk unless asked of, but now if I feel like there's something that I need to say, and something important, I will put myself out there. And I think the blocker that exists for many people is they feel that what they say maybe is not beneficial or won't be worthwhile.
Hmm.
And which is not the case. And you'd be surprised how many people want you to talk. Like it's not like when you're in a meeting, in a team meeting, it's not just the person leading the meeting or the manager who's there to talk to people. They want it to be a discussion. They want input. And if you start talking and putting yourself out there, I guess the question you should ask yourself, or what I ask myself is, what's the worst that can happen?
Hmm.
If I say this, what's the worst? Like, I'm not gonna get fired. Is it gonna look bad? It's just I'm expressing my opinion and it may help people. And there's not really a worst case scenario here. Is that
Yeah.
so? Is that true? Does your personality play into this? Is that why people are afraid to speak up? And how do you get over that hump?
I think to some extent, definitely yes. At least from what I've observed. And I remember being at Tableau conference. It was the most recent one I went to, actually, 2019, when Susan Cain did the keynote, the closing keynote, and she talked about her book Quiet. I think I don't remember exactly the subtitle, but it was something about how to kind of be an introvert in a world that can't stop talking, or something to that effect. So very much about introversion, extroversion. And at the time, she asked, she gave a little description of introversion and she asked who identifies with it. And at least 60% of the arms went up. And I thought, here we are the day after an obnoxiously loud, intense party with all these people who maybe didn't really want that kind of party, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe only the extroverts went to the party. But I think your observation is definitely right. And I have seen that in my coaching. I've seen it with colleagues as well, especially working in tech companies where you have developers. I've worked in a place where they had their own part of the floor, and some of them you never saw. There was one guy I met at a Christmas party once, and I'm like, who is this? And they're like, oh, yeah, he's been here for 10 years. I'm like, I've never seen him. I've never even seen him. Um, and I think that is totally okay. Of course, it's totally okay. Everyone is different, right? Um, I would definitely describe myself as an extrovert, but I have since learned through a bit of research that I fall into the highly sensitive category. So that means I love this kind of stuff. I love conferences, but they're still exhausting for me. And I also need a healthy dose of solitude to recharge and kind of be by myself with my thoughts. Um, and I just feel things quite deeply. Like there's, when I process stuff, it can be quite a lot of work for me to kind of work through that. With all that said, what I like to think of that is that for everyone, no matter whether you are super introverted and you can't think of anything worse than having to like socialize, do small talk, all of that, to the people who would love to spend the entire day doing that. I think there's something for everyone. There's a way for everyone to show up. And I think the more introverted you are, maybe the more appealing it is to let your work do the talking instead of you having to do the talking. And that's great. It
Can you
just means
talk
you need to.
about that? How do you do that? How do you let
So,
your work do the talking rather than you do the talking?
so examples I can think of are like YouTube videos, face off, just screen share, how-to guides, like very technical,
Yeah.
focused on, functionality, features, etc. But where you can bring your expertise and say, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. Um, a blog, maybe a technical blog. It could be somebody said to me they really like drawing and maybe doing like visual depictions of things, processes, etc. Could be publishing a book. I mean, I know that people may be like, oh my God, how could I publish a book? But actually, self-publishing on Amazon is a thing. So it's not that difficult anymore. Um, and so, and then in a work context where you're not publishing to YouTube, but maybe you're working on a project, you're building a dashboard, you're writing code, you're building apps. It's about doing the work, but making sure that the end result is associated with you as well. Like if that is your thing that you build, rather than just pressing submit or, it gets cleared from testing or whatever the case may be, maybe talking to your manager and saying, like kind of what you took away from it, having a bit of a conversation with a person about it, then that person can speak on your behalf. They can be the one who says, oh, yes, John built that. Actually, John and my team did that great work.
Yeah.
You need to self-advocate to some extent. But I think we can all practice that, right? And if that is really uncomfortable, starting with the easiest way to do it, the way that you think, oh, yeah, I could do that. I'm going to try that. And building that muscle, because if you don't advocate for yourself, why should anyone else? I mean, it sounds harsh, but I think that's the reality we're experiencing.
Okay.
Um,
A
yeah.
light bulb just went out, went up for me. Like as you were talking, I asked you for examples, right?
Hmm.
And then you brought one up. You're like, you can write a book. I'm like, no, I can't. Like self-publishing is very easy to do. I'm like, wait, I never even like thought about that
Hmm.
possibility. And now that you brought it up, I'm not saying I'm going to write a book, but other people may think, oh, you know what? I know enough. I have enough knowledge to write a book, and maybe that's how I put myself out there and market myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need other people maybe to give you those ideas that you may not have thought of to put yourself out there, right? And so these are the great examples.
And I think you really do. And an example that I experienced was I had a manager when I lived in Australia, and he was doing a half Ironman. He was training for it, and I said, "Oh, I've always thought about doing a triathlon because when I was a teenager, I watched, which was at the time Ironman Germany. I'm like, these people are so impressive. I could never do this." He's like, "Why don't you?" And I thought, "Hang on, why? What? Why
Yeah,
don't I?"
yeah, yeah,
But because somebody else just said out loud without any doubt, why don't you try this thing? I thought, okay, maybe I'll give it a go. And then I'm like, oh, actually, you don't have to do like this Iron Man thing. You could actually do a really short one that you could do with the bike you've got in the basement. Like, there are ways to do it without having to go all professional. Um, and I think he really unblocked a lot of things for me with that statement. Why don't you do it? Because he didn't have any doubt in my ability to give it a go when I had so many reasons why I couldn't do it. I didn't have a bike, I couldn't swim fast. It's like I can learn all of these things.
yeah.
And then I did, and it was amazing. And I think similar, so self-publishing, if anyone is interested, while so we did a friend of mine and I we published a book on football intelligence and we did self-publishing through Amazon. Now he handled that part of the process, but essentially you don't have any cost. You don't have to keep any stock. You write the thing, which is the hard work. You
Mhm.
do a lot of editing and reviewing. But when you're ready to publish it, you go through Amazon and people can buy the e-version, the Kindle version, I guess, or they can have the option of having a printed copy and then Amazon kind of prints on demand for you. So it it's different and different challenges from working with a publisher. I've done
Yeah,
both, but it actually makes becoming an author something that otherwise would be a lot more difficult for a lot of people. So if somebody has an idea, yeah, I want them to know this is an avenue you can pursue. Don't let that bit hold you back.
yeah, for sure. I I think this plays to the importance of having mentors too, right?
Mm.
Because sometimes So I serve as a mentor. I'm also a mentee, and I've seen both sides, right? And sometimes I feel like you just need that support from somebody or somebody to kind of tell you and give you the green light or give you the confidence and to say like, listen, you can do this. And provide some of their experiences as well. So how does the mentorship play into um, optimizing your potential?
Hmm. I think it's really, really important. And I know a question people will probably have immediately is, how do I find a mentor?
Yes.
Um, I don't know if I have a straightforward answer to that because for me, mentors kind of emerged. They just became visible in my workplace, usually at work, where I'm like, oh, this relationship with my manager is also a bit of a mentoring relationship. They would buy into this idea of wanting to advance my career because it was something they wanted to do, not because they had to do it as a manager, but they're like, actually, I really want to help Eva.
Mhm.
So that was fortunate, and I think I definitely used that, for my benefit and got their ideas. People who are a few steps ahead, a few years ahead, where you can say, this is somebody I aspire to be, or this is somebody who's done things I would like to do. That's probably where I would focus on first. When I more proactively looked for a mentor, even then I didn't say out loud, can you be my mentor? It was more, I stepped into the role as evangelist, and I was in it for a few years. And I spoke to Francois Argenstad, who at the time was the chief product officer at Tableau, and I said, hey, like I'm doing this evangelism role. He's very much an evangelist. And I said, can I ask you some questions about that? And after that, we have had a few conversations. One was really, really helpful where he told me, Eva, I think you need to ask more questions. You need to ask me more questions because I can help you, but you need to ask me questions. And I thought, oh, how do I start asking more questions? Like I felt
Yeah.
really on the spot. I'm like, how do I just start asking more questions? But then he helped me with a book recommendation. It's called The Book of Beautiful Questions, and by Warren Berger. And I'm like, oh, I full transparency. I didn't read the whole book, but I got a lot out of the parts I read. I read about two-thirds of
Mhm.
it, and I thought, oh, you can actually learn to ask more questions. And so I made that my mission, and I think it's part of why I got into coaching because I get to ask people a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I think it's those relationships, they can really have a pivotal moment, and for me, it's often people have said one thing that still rings true in my head. My first manager at Deloitte, 2011, one of the first meetings we were in, he said, always draw a picture. And I will remember the words until the day I die because it's so helpful to always draw a picture to clarify in a
You mean,
conversation
you mean if
what everyone's talking
if you
about.
have an idea, draw a picture?
Yeah, or if with your stakeholders and you're discussing, where the data comes from, all the different systems that play into it, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, but this comes here and then this happens. No, 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 then this happens. Okay, let's draw a picture. Boxes and lines, so everyone can agree the sequential order of things, the different bits that need to flow into it. Because then often you find, with this analogy of four people touching different parts of an elephant and everyone thinks it's a different thing. It's like when you have a picture, it all becomes clear and people are like, oh no, this line goes that way. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize. Oh yeah, you're right. So it brings everyone onto a common ground rather than being abstract when you're just shouting at each other kind of thing.
Yeah. Visualizing is such a powerful tool, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
Tableau, the whole the whole selling point of Tableau is the visual capabilities, right?
Yeah.
To communicate, right? And it's not just in data; it's just in anything that you do, right? If you visualize it, it makes it a little bit easier to understand and grasp and communicate.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's when we jump to things like, oh, they want a dashboard, oh, they want a pie chart, we lose some of that magic of exploring visually what's actually the best way to present this data, what will make people realize there is an outlier or there is a problem. What other options do I have? Going through a bunch of different visualizations to see actually maybe a scatter plot is better for this data, and then telling people exactly what they're looking at and asking them questions to say, why could this be the case? Like what's going on in the business,
Yeah.
and really understanding more as well.
Yeah, no, this is great. A lot of great points here. What I wanted to ask you, and I usually do this in the beginning, But we'll ask it at the end, right? So this is being the Data Nerd podcast. I asked my guests if they are a data nerd, and I think I know the answer. But when did you realize you were one?
Hmm. I know the exact moment. I don't remember the exact date, but it
Okay.
was 2013, 2014 when I first started using Tableau. And somebody, I think it was my Tableau trainer at the time, her name was Julia. She did the fundamentals training for us when I was at Commonwealth Bank, and she told me about the Tableau user group in Sydney. And I went there not knowing what to expect. And I'm like, oh my God, people are having pizza and talking about data in the evening, and they're looking at maps. This is really strange, but also really cool. And I had this sensation of, I found my people. Like, this
Hmm.
is really, really cool to be surrounded by people who find this interesting because I didn't think they would exist outside of the office environment. Um, and what happened there is a guy presented about some map stuff he built. His name is David Murphy. He was one of the Zen Masters as well. Um, and we got talking there. He's super, super tall. We were chatting, and at the end of the event, we're like, okay, I'm gonna go home. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go home too. And which direction are you heading? Oh yeah, I'm heading to Piedmont. We happen to be neighbors. Literally, he lived in the building next door. And while we haven't been in touch much, there's like just a super good vibe of he is the first Tableau friend I had. And that is when I found I was a data nerd.
I guess when you met when you meet other people who are like-minded like you, and you're like, oh, you know what? This is like these are my people, and then now you realize like this, yeah, that's your calling. You're a data nerd. This is the path you want to go in.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, the great story. Um, no, this has been great, Eva. Great chatting. A lot of great takeaways and insights here. Hannah, how can people get in touch with you or reach out to you, or if they want um, to explore some of the services that you offer?
Yeah, so best way would be either on LinkedIn, Eva Murray, or on my website is evamurray.co.uk. And you can find out more about the coaching. You can get in touch. You can book a discovery call or just send me a DM on LinkedIn as well. If you can't think of what to put in there, just put in Data Nerd Podcast and I'll
Yeah.
respond. Yeah, it would be lovely to talk with people from the audience. So don't don't hesitate. Don't be shy. I love having these conversations. So if this sparked something and you want to talk about it, let me know.
Yeah. And to your point, like sometimes you need to like take that first step. And if the first step is connecting with you and exploring having that conversation, you never know where that may lead you to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. No, thanks, Eva. I'll put all of that information in the show notes. So if anyone does want to connect, they can connect with Eva. But pleasure having you on, and I hope to keep in touch, and maybe we'll have further conversations down the line.
That'll be great. Thank you for having me and have a good rest of your day.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a rating or review. It really helps more data nerds discover the show. You can find all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, and more at thedatanerdpodcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and embrace your inner data nerd.